Welcome to the Interior Design Her podcast, real-world business education for interior designers. In today's episode of the Interior Design Her podcast, we've invited Melanie Zaelich here to discuss two topics. Number one, her highly successful consultation-based interior design firm Happy Place Interiors, and number two, her brand new business branding and marketing course designed for designers who want their own consult-driven interior design business. As part of my research before starting this podcast, I listened to a lot of interior design business podcasts, and Melanie was the only guest I ever heard who operated a consultation-only business. It seemed like a smart idea then, and after speaking with Melanie, it sounds like an even better idea for a lot of interior designers. If you're the kind of designer who just wants to design interiors, you are going to love my interview with Melanie Zaelich.
Melanie, you're definitely not the first interior designer to have taken to design as their second career or third career. But I think how you were in advertising and marketing prior to that is going to be pretty interesting to interior designers. So can you kind of tell us your origin story as a designer?
Yes, definitely. So my story is I started out as a graphic designer and about 20 years ago or so, and I worked at some top Minneapolis design firms, not interior design, but graphic design firms. And then I moved into more advertising and I became an art director. And what that means is I used to shoot TV commercials. So I would fly to New York or Atlanta or LA and shoot TV commercials. And while I was at one of the agencies that I worked at, ironically, HGTV came out with a call. We have a local production house in Minneapolis that shoots a lot of HGTV shows. And they came out with a call to looking for somebody who had a room in their house who needed a makeover. And I had just recently purchased my very first house, and I decorated and did everything like on the main floor, but I struggled with my bedroom. So I answered the HGTV call and I was on the show as the homeowner, not the designer. So meanwhile, I'm working as a graphic designer, art director, shooting TV commercials, and then I was on HGTV. And that was just pivotal to me. The designer came over, the whole production crew came over and redesigned my bedroom. It was one of those shows where it was like design on a dime, where they take what you have and revamp everything. And at the end of it, the designer did a fabulous job. And I just like looked around and I thought to myself, oh, well, I could do this. This is what I do for TV sets. When I'm setting up a TV commercial, I do all this. But I think because it was my own space, I couldn't separate myself from it. So that was really the seed that planted everything. But meanwhile, I stayed at that agency for about 10 years and shot my TV commercials and did my graphic design. And about 10 years after that HGTV experience, the company I was working for was undergoing a lot of changes. And I had started working on my friends and family's homes. Like a lot of designers, how they just get started, they start working on friends and family. And with the changes at my company and the experience of the HGTV and working with friends and family, that's when I decided to take the leap of faith. And I planned it out, before I quit, but I planned it out and then I left my job and started my company.
Yeah. And the way your company works, it's a little bit different in that you focus exclusively on consultations as opposed to doing every single thing. And how did you land on that?
Okay. Yep. When I first started, which was in 2016, after I left my corporate advertising job, I did everything. So I didn't start with simply consultations. I did full service interior design, home staging, but the consultations have always been there. It was one of the first things that I introduced, and I did them the entire time. And the thing that happened within a couple months of me starting my business, I was super busy. And I only continued to get more busy and more busy between the full service design, the consultations, and the staging. So as time went on, I had to start making some big decisions like, what do I actually want to do? And within a couple of years, I stopped staging. I sold all my inventory, and I stopped doing that. So then I focused on full service design and the interior design consultations. And again, I was too busy. Now I could have hired people. I could have grown a team. I know a lot of designers want to do that. But having like a large business where I'm managing people and paychecks and taxes and all of that, that was not anything I ever wanted to do, ever from day one. I wanted to keep things just more simple, keep it just me, small team, solopreneur. So with that, I had to make another decision. Do I focus on full service or do I focus on consultations? And it was kind of a no-brainer for me, but consultations is where I went, and I decided to drop full service. And I haven't been happier since. It's been amazing. It's been about 2.5 years.
That's what I was going to ask you. How long have you been focused exclusively on the consultations? In that time, well, not just in the 2.5 years, but how many consultations would you say you have done since you put out your shingle as an interior designer?
Since 2016, around 2,000, give or take. I do about, every year is a little different, but I do between 200 and 300 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long would it take you on average to do one?
Well, I have different types of consultations. So I have a 90-minute, I have a 3-hour, and I have up to 6 hours. And occasionally that changes because I might, change up the type of services that I have, but those are generally 90 minutes, 3 hours, and 6 hours.
I got it. And sometimes maybe a shorter one turns into a longer one. They realize they need more or they want more.
Yep. Often. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, this leads us right into my next topic, which is I'm curious about your designer's blueprint program. How that works. If you could explain that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. It is, in a nutshell, the designer's blueprint, mastering a consult-driven interior design business. It's the full name, but it is the steps to take to go to either add consultations or do solely consultations in your interior design business. But it's everything you need to do in order to be as successful as I have been. And by successful, I mean fully booked for up to 3 months and as busy as you want to be. So in order to get there, I mean, there's obviously things that you need to do. And in the blueprint, I talk about branding, marketing, messaging, time management, mindset shifts, like everything that I've learned from either my 20 years of advertising or 9 years in the interior design business, and like about 2,000 consultations. And I just put it all together and then streamlined it because my path wasn't straight. There was a lot of learning going on. And now that I've learned everything, I wanted to put it together in kind of a straight path for other designers.
Right. And there's lots of different models that a designer can set up their business as and can change over time. I'm a big podcast guy. I listen to podcasts a lot, and I listen to a lot of interior design podcasts that are focused on business. And for the most part, the message that I keep hearing over the last 2-3 years is that designers are almost expected to scale this business to not just a full service, we do everything, we project manage, but almost exclusively for luxury clients. And there's only so many of those people around. So to me, I'm like, there's so many other paths. And this just seemed to me, when I found out about you, I was like, this is great. And there's probably so many different designers who are not aware. And I'm curious, can you maybe give me an idea of the designer who would thrive using this kind of service? Maybe somebody who only wants to do it part-time or as a second career or supplementary. Do you find that maybe there's a type of designer that would do well with a consultation service?
Absolutely. Yep. One thing I talk about in the blueprint is a mindset shift. So, and part of that is, if you're a designer and you're not able to have the right mindset, then you're not going to thrive in this type of business. Because a mindset from a full service luxury interior designer to a consultation-based interior designer, they're very, very different. And I think any designer can certainly do the consultation base, but they're going to be most successful if they have the right mindset. So the mindset is, or the type of designer that would thrive is typically the person that hires a consultation-based person, a designer, is not a luxury market. So a luxury market type of person who does hire a consultation from a designer is probably hiring a famous interior designer for a 30-minute consultation at the tune of $2,000. And part of that is to say, I had so-and-so help me design my house. There's part of that. And so that's not the type of designer that I work with. The person that's going to thrive in this business model is the designer who really wants to empower the homeowner and teach the homeowner how to go about a kitchen remodel. Well, let's talk about the countertops, like walking them through the process. How do you style your living room? Hey, let's move your furniture around and pull things from different rooms. That kind of more hands-on type of designer who likes to work with the homeowner and empower them versus saying, hey, this is my style, let me put it in your living room. That's the difference. And that's part of the mindset shift, that if you're an interior designer and you're the type of person who really needs to control every aspect and make sure that your clients only use your contractors or subs, tradespeople, that person probably isn't going to thrive quite as much, because you have to be able to let go of some of these projects. If you recommend a particular color to a client, Benjamin Moore Classic Gray, beautiful color, but they ended up painting it Sherwin-Williams Alabaster, which is similar but different. It's more white. You have to be able to be okay with that. You do your best, you empower that homeowner to make their own choices. And the design is not really your baby anymore. You're a little bit more of a service provider than that designer mindset. So it's a different type of mindset shift. Does that make sense?
It seems almost like you're an educator.
Yep.
Right.
And I think, yeah,
No, go ahead, please.
I think that person that has that mindset is going to have the most success, especially when it comes to client boundaries and whether or not they want to continue with a la carte design work. If they want to do just the consultation and not any other follow-up work, then they really have to be able to give that homeowner step-by-step instructions, empowerment, so that the homeowner can go off and implement whatever the plan is, whatever the designer says.
Makes sense. Could you possibly share a success story of a student that you've had that's gone on to create their own consultation business?
Well, the program is quite new. The program started, I launched it in November, and I've got many students. As far as I know, nobody has quite finished the program yet, but the feedback I've been hearing has been incredible about one particular student really has been talking about going through the program is giving her the framework in which to think about each aspect of her business, between her branding, her marketing, her messaging, and even how she currently offers a plethora of services: Airbnb, residential, commercial, and all these different types. And I've really set the framework for her to narrow down and niche what it is she's going to offer in her consultations. So we haven't launched one yet, but tons of great feedback.
In all those different niches or market niches, like that definitely sees like there's potential there to do a whole bunch of different things.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the market, as far as who hires a designer for consultations only, is growing. I mean, there's a reason during COVID, I was booked out for 3 months and I had a waiting list of over 100 people, which sounds fabulous, but it was quite stressful, frankly. But there is such a need. And I think it really stems from Instagram and Pinterest. There are so many like DIY designers out there showing all these things. And I get hired a lot, not off my own Instagram page, but off other designers' Instagram page, because people see all this stuff on TikTok and Instagram, but they want somebody to talk to in their home. They see all these wonderful tips and tricks and decorating ideas, and then they're like, come to my house and teach me how to do this, or show me how this works in my house. So thank you to all the Instagram designers out there. But it really, people want that same type of service, but they want it in their home and specifically for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say it probably started with HGTV. Going back to your story, how people watch that and then they're like, well, I want this in my house. And then they contact a designer and they get an idea of the price. And they're like, maybe I can't afford that. But I don't just want to rely on YouTube videos. And, if they can get you on the phone or a Zoom or however you're doing, we'll have to dive into that too, the nuts and bolts of how you do your consultations. It's not just the things that they're aware that they don't know. I don't know how to put up kitchen cabinets, but it's all those unknown things that that goes into a job that it would never even enter their mind.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. And everybody wants granite countertops now, and nobody wants the old school 1970s counters. But to do it at a price that makes sense.
Yep. And even feedback I get from my clients is locally a lot. Being able to give my clients, go to this store and look at these countertops. Call this person for cabinet installation. Just having those connections and local recommendations are so valuable to people. So, I mean, another thing about people who hire designers for a consultation only, I think part of it is, like you said, they call an interior designer, they get an idea of a price, $60,000 to decorate a living room or whatever the price is. And I think price is a part of why people are going to hire a consultation-based designer, but there's actually more people. I mean, one of the things I cover in the blueprint is the market segment, like who hires interior designers for a consultation only. And one does have to do with price. And I think that's the most obvious one, that people come up with. but it's also people out there who are more creative in their mind, or, whatever. They're creative and they want their home to be curated and perfectly fit to them, and they want to do it themselves. Like, they don't want somebody come in and put somebody else's fingerprint. They want their fingerprint. They just don't know what they don't know, and they don't know exactly how to pull it all together or how to arrange their furniture, but they want to use what they have. They love what they have, or they want to shop at antique stores, but they want the direction. How big should the art be? What types of objects would I look for at an antique shop when I go? So there's kind of these creative people that just want help. There's people that just want to learn. So, I get a lot of first-time homeowners that want to learn how to decorate their home, knowing that they're going to probably be in 2 or 3 other homes, and they're not going to hire a full-service designer for every home they ever live in. They want to learn how to do it so they can evolve it as their family grows or their house changes or whatever. So there's a lot of other reasons why people wouldn't hire a full-service designer, not just financial reasons, if that makes sense.
Well, no, makes sense. And I also would probably lump in time as well, right? If you hire a designer to come in and reno your house, the goal is to get it done as quickly as possible. But if you're doing it yourself or with the help of a consultant designer, you could space this over time, do a room at a time, do a project at a time, go and select, okay, we're gonna do paint. And we're going to choose paint for every room in the house, and we're going to refresh. Oh, okay. Then 6 months later, maybe they come back and say, okay, we want to change out the furniture in the living room. I need help with that. Right. Yep. So that's an interesting way of doing it. And, I think that we talked briefly about local of you knowing where to send people to do things. Which twigged me. I'm wondering for you with your design clients, not the designer's blueprint, but just your personal clients. Do you find them you're still in a local area, or do you get them from all over the place?
I'm still primarily in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. I do offer virtual consultations as well, and I do a good handful of those, but it's not my primary business. Locally, that's where I have, the 200 or 300 clients a year is local.
Okay. And that's really good. That's really good. Like I can see, I live in Toronto, which is much larger than Minneapolis. I could just imagine the number of designers here, or somebody outside of Los Angeles or New York or Chicago. There's so much business. That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised also with you. The more your name over time is attached to consultation-based interior design, you start getting more people from outside your local vicinities just saying, well, your name is just going to start popping up on socials and on Google and whatnot. And right. Yeah. And now you've got all these students that you're teaching through the blueprint. Oh, you've got a great idea going on here. This is excellent.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I do love doing the virtual consultations, and we can get a lot, done in the consultations on the virtual ones. The only thing that's a little difficult is I'm not there to physically move the furniture around, but depending on the situation, sometimes I have people have a friend, if I think that furniture arrangement is going to be in the cards for them, then I will have them get prepared with furniture sliders and an extra set of hands or something. But I really love working locally and being able to have that face-to-face contact with somebody. And the designer's blueprint, the way the program is set up, is specifically for designers who want to work locally. Everything that's talked about in the blueprint can definitely be applied if they want to do more virtual. But the marketing changes a little bit, from your local marketing to the national marketing. So that part would be a little different. but everything else is definitely set up for virtual or local.
Okay. Let's say I'm an interior designer who's been listening to this podcast, and like me, I'm like, this sounds like something I might be interested in doing. What would the process be like? Either I contact you via your website or a phone call. How would the onboarding and the process go?
Yep. There is a website, thedesignersblueprint.com, and you can sign up right on there. Also on that website, I think towards the bottom, you can book like a discovery call type of thing if you want to chat for 15 minutes to say, hey, is this the right program for me? Like, this is where I'm at. This is kind of where I want to go. Do you think that the blueprint would help me get here? So it's that's also available. So an email, phone call. There's also 100% money back guaranteed because I stand behind it.
Okay. I'm also curious, how you said you never really took to the idea of having, this really large design firm with all sorts of employees and having to deal with all of that. How does running your business the way you do impact your home life, your day to day, not just the business side?
Oh, sure. Well, now that I've got it all figured out, it's great. But I mean, now it's good. But when I started, I'm very lucky with my background, the 20 years of advertising and branding, because that really, when I started, I got busy within a couple months, and I attribute it to my background, that I was able to build my own website, make it look good, do the branding and everything. But everything from there, my path was just wild, which affected my home life, right? Part of me wanting to leave corporate America and my advertising job was my daughter was 2 years old. So my goal was, by the time she hit kindergarten, that I would be successful enough where I could attend the PTA meetings if I wanted to, or see her school plays, or be flexible to have that home life with my daughter. And my husband too, we can't forget about him. but but because I was so busy trying to figure out the staging and the full service, I was overly busy. So that's why 2.5 years ago, my daughter is now 11. She's in 5th grade now. But back when she would have been probably 3rd grade or so is when I was like, I need to cut off the full service. I need to cull it down and perfect what I'm doing with the consults. And since then, it's been great. Like, the work-life balance is beautiful because I set my hours, right? I have specific days, specific types of consultations can be booked on certain days because I do offer a la carte services. So I'll give feedback to clients. They pay for everything. Like, I don't do any work for free at all. But I do extra work. Like, I'll do digital mock-ups of fireplaces. And if you want to change it out to a different stone or a brick or paint it or whatever, I can do digital mock-ups of these things. So I have Fridays set aside where it's all client work, or I go up to the lake, right? Or I hang out with my daughter. Like, it's whatever I want it to be. Or but I don't allow people to schedule on Fridays. So if somebody's kid was sick and a client needs to reschedule, they'll probably land on a Friday. So it's really, there was a lot of organizing of time and implementing different systems and processes to make my home life easy peasy now. And all of that I put into Blueprint because I don't want anybody else to have to go through the wild ride that I kind of went through to get to where I am.
No, well, you paint an attractive picture for sure. Like I said about, podcasts and how designers are being told what they should do to consider themselves a successful interior designer. And to me, I never understood that. I mean, there's so many different paths, like different kinds of businesses that you can run, and it's not going to be the same for everybody. Definitely the local aspect. I want to come back to that. When it came to you, as you made this switch, you already had clients and you already had a name where you were. If somebody was starting out, graduated, maybe had, say they'd worked for somebody for a couple of years and they were feeling this itch to go out on their own. I'm guessing this is a smart way to, even if they wanted to go that path of full service, this would be a great way to get started. And then as you need to build up contacts with contractors and trades and all that kind of stuff. Do you find in this first kind of swath of clients you've had for the blueprint that you're getting younger designers, or is there any kind of demographic there that's showing?
Yeah, it's still, it's still newer, but I do think what you said about like a younger designer maybe working for somebody, maybe wanting to branch out. I do think the consultations is a great way to get started. And with the blueprint, I think it would help. What would help them is obviously the branding of this new company, right? The marketing of the new company. And also I go through super detailed about how to do a consultation. So if they've only worked in the full service, that's going to be different than the hands-on with people. So I go through that specifically. So I think it would be great. In fact, just this morning, I had a young woman who is graduating in May of 2025 with her degree. And I mentioned it to her as an option down the road. If you ever want to pursue your own, keep this in mind. But as far as the current people enrolled in the program, it's really interesting. They are all right now, as much as I know, because I don't know, I know personal details or business details rather of about half of them, but not everybody. Okay. And I know these either because they're local Minneapolis designers or because we had this discovery call, right, where they kind of told me what their situation is and how they want to grow. But for the ones that I know personally or business-wise, they are semi-established. They've been in business for at least 6 to 10 years. They, most of them are in a position where they offer everything, consultations and full service. Most of them want to stop doing full service because of the stress, and the anxiety, the stress, the time demands, the constraints, I can't take vacation because so-and-so's house, whatever, like all the kind of downsides of full service, all those types of. So these people are all wanting to move into consultations or expand the consultations because they're not being profitable with the consults yet. So they want to drop full service, do consultations, but make enough money on them, So that's kind of where they're at right now.
Could we go through some of the modules or chapters or sections of your program of the blueprint and kind of give us like a hypothetical designer how they work their way through that?
Yep. I call them, there's 6 modules. I call them steps, but step 1 through 6. Step 1 is really about creating like a solid foundation. And I came up with 4 power blocks, as I call them, but it's about knowing the market, who's going to hire you. It's about, your niche. It's about who your ideal client is. And the biggest part is how to develop a brand that showcases all these things and connects with your ideal client. So that first step is huge, just that's like foundation for everything. And then, and ideally, a person enrolled would go through each step in chronological order. And then once you have that foundation set, then you move on to your services and fees. What exactly are you going to offer and how much are you going to charge for it? And again, you can't really answer those things until you have your foundation set, because everything goes back to your ideal client and you and who you're going to serve, right? Then you move on to the actual consultations. Like once you figure out like what your services or the consultations, you might have packages. Maybe there's a 3 consult package for renovations, whatever it is. Then we talk about going through and crafting the client experience. And I get really detailed about that, because what I've seen in a lot of interior design, like business Facebook groups and stuff, is I've seen so many posts where a designer had some sort of a consultation and then the client didn't get what they expected, So a lot of this is about setting expectations and how to do that and how to communicate those expectations clearly, so that, because the goal is really every single consult that you have should be 5-star. So this section is really about how to do that, because if you miss on one, and your client's upset or frustrated, the word of mouth, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a whole section on having like this amazing client experience. And then we move on. Oh, and I talk about the tools, like what do I have in my car? What do I bring to consultations? Like we go through all of that kind of neat part of it. And then step 4 would be talking about optimizing for efficiency, like automation, tracking time, like making sure that when you're working, that you're being efficient and effective, right? And you're not just like wandering, not sure of what you're going to be doing, making sure that your clients or emails are always being taken care of, so we talk about different things like that. And then we go into step 5, which is also a super big one, which is all about marketing, right? Which again ties back to the first step, which is all about branding and your client, so everything does just build on each other, right? So by the time you get to your, focused marketing plan, you know who you're targeting, you know what you're offering, you know how much you're charging, you know exactly how to make this amazing client experience. And now you bring it to market, right? And this is how you do it. And so that has a lot of lessons. Each step has multiple lessons involved. And after each lesson, there's action steps to take, right? So as you're going through, you're basically filling out your business plan and answering everything. So by the end, you have everything laid out that you're going to do and how you're going to do it and who you're going to talk to and how you're going to talk to them. But in the marketing part is a ton about social media, SEO, websites. We talk about messaging, and there's, I've been on a gazillion interior design websites, and, my background this is my background, right? So there's a ton about messaging, ton about visuals. We talk about social media versus evergreen content. Like we get into like all of that. And then step 6 is growing. Diversification would be if you want to offer a la carte services, if you want to do affiliate marketing, if you, all that kind of more quote passive income, making extra money through vendors and tradespeople or different things like that. And so by doing the action steps after every single lesson, by the time you finish step 6 or module 6, everything is completely laid out for you. Mm-hmm. Exactly how you want it to be. Because what one designer offers, right, is hopefully going to be different than another designer. Like maybe somebody just wants to do paint and color consultations. Maybe somebody wants to focus in on the boomer market who are moving into these transitional housing, the aging in place type of situation, or neurodiversity, and creating rooms and spaces for these kids with autism. I mean, there's so many things out there. And part of what I do in the blueprint is I have different ideas of different markets and niches that people could potentially think about, because I think as interior designers, I don't know how, but we just kind of think about your basic needs, right? Or your basic living room design or house renovation. But there's so many different little markets and places that people could work and that there's really a need for.
Yeah. I've got a friend who focuses exclusively on biophilic interior design, and it's kind of a buzzword right now, but she's been doing it for almost 20 years, and it stemmed out of a personal thing for her, like how she brought that into her life, and then she became a designer as a second career, and it was just a no-brainer. So there's so many options of what you can do.
Oh, yep.
I'm wondering about, I've got a couple of questions based on what we just said. Referrals. How much of your business is referrals? And would you assume that the same thing would kind of track with somebody who just got into setting up a consultation-based service?
My referrals, it's kind of funny. I only started asking, where did you hear about me? About a year or two ago. So I haven't been tracking it that long. So sometimes I'm referred by somebody, but it never came up, right, in conversation. Now I ask specifically, well, who referred you? But I would think about 25%, 25% is probably referral based, give or take.
Yeah. And I mean, repeat business, we talked about that. I think that would be a fantastic way to keep your pipeline, constantly refilling. Another question I was wondering about is, we touched briefly on technology and automation. The big thing right now, obviously, is artificial intelligence. And I remember, a few months ago, suddenly all the interior design podcasts started talking about it, and people across all sorts of industries started freaking out that, we're going to be replaced by robots, blah, blah, blah. And I think what you're doing is like that exact niche where AI and technology almost can't touch, right? Like a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, the back of the house stuff, right? Fill your boots on automation for that. All your bookkeeping, procurement, all those kind of things will probably have a strong AI influence. But you sitting down, and looking that homeowner in the eye, and them understanding that you get what they're saying, what they want, right? Yep. And I'm like, so it's almost like you're kind of bulletproofing your business from technology.
Absolutely. Yep. And I know there's a lot of AI programs out there where people can like virtually design their own space or whatever. And I'm not concerned at all about that, because even if people see a picture like that, they don't know how to do that. And it's kind of like what I said earlier about all the Instagram and Pinterest, that all the posting that designers do, people still need somebody in their house to show them. They can't make the leap from one thing to the other. So as far as AI is concerned with the homeowner and what I provide, I don't see any competition.
And I mean, to further back that up, all of these AIs are trained on, all the information they've scraped off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
How is the interior design advice scraped off the internet going to match up to what or what a designer who's been doing this for 20 years in a specific locale, who knows all the best stores to go to, who the best trades are? I mean, until they can pull that information out of your brain and put it into their model, it's apples and oranges.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is.
Okay. Well, this has been fantastic. That's all the questions I have. Is there anything you think I've missed that we should cover?
Um, I don't think so. I think we covered everything. I guess the only thing else that I'd want to say is that um, I think there's even a big market for full service design companies that have a team. I think there's a really good potential for that full service design company to have like a segment that does just consultations and has specific designers that just do those, right? So you have a big firm, they probably get a lot of calls. And I think that these big firms think, oh, it's small potatoes. And in maybe some cases it is. But if they had one or two consultation-based designers on staff to do those consultations, it can also grow their full service side. So I think that there's an opportunity for those companies to do this, and maybe it's a freelance designer, maybe it's not a staff member, but like a contract designer that goes out and does consultations on behalf and so big design firm, right? So I think there's opportunity for those firms to grow, but I do think that the blueprint with the how they'd have to market different and knowing the markets and the mindset, especially, and how to manage those expectations, I think that would be really valuable for them if they were interested in having a branch or a leg with just consultations.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, I think they probably would need to definitely make that separation between their full service. You can't, which makes sense, right? If you've got nothing but designers who are doing full service and you say, okay, I want you to take X number of hours out of your week to do just consultation, that's going to cause drama with your schedules. But if you have a separate branch altogether doing that, that's another excellent idea for maybe for a design firm that is doing full service that would like to grow, instead of just looking at, doing more of what you do, offering this as a separate service, brand new set of clients come in the door.
Mm-hmm. And even though there's, the people that would hire the consultation designer versus a full service, they're very different people. But it doesn't mean that that person who would hire the consultant doesn't have friends who would want the full service, right? And so many of my clients that I work with that hire me are actually really good. They just need a little extra guidance and direction. So sometimes I walk into a house and I'm like, wow, this looks amazing. Like, what am I going to be able to help? And then they have all these specific little questions that they want. But those types of people might have friends that are more interested in full service. And then they see my client's house thinking, oh my gosh, your designer from big firm helped you do this. I want to call that big firm and have them do it all for me. So I think there's a good crossover. And I also think that if an owner of a bigger firm, right, with staff, they could also make local connections with consultants to referral base, back and forth referrals, because I still get, even though it's clear on my website, as clear as I can make it, that I do consultations, I get full service inquiries all the time. At least 5 a week, if not 10 a week, between bath, kitchen remodels, full service, like the whole 9 yards. So partnering up with local interior design consultants or consultant-based companies and big service firms, there could be a really great partnership to boost each other. Because I really think that, a lot of designers talk about the general public not having a good idea of the value design brings. And I think that the more people that experience design, whether it's through a full service agency or a consultant type person, the more people that experience it, it's going to become more common knowledge. Like, oh, designers can really bring the value, and I don't have to spend, $50,000, right? But I got the value of design, because I think as an industry as a whole, we want people to understand the value that we bring. We just have to start bringing it on different levels, if that makes sense.
No, total sense. I knew I was going to love this conversation. I am so glad we did this. I am so glad. That's perfect. I will make sure all your contact information for both your design services and for the Blueprint program are in the show notes and all that good stuff. And hope to circle back with you again, and we can have another chat maybe in 6 months or so.
That'd be fabulous. I would love that.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Melanie.
Thank you.
If you liked my interview with Melanie Zaelich, please like, share, and subscribe to our little podcast. I've got lots of great guests lined up with tons of real-world business education for interior designers. And if you're curious about what it could be like to run your own consult-driven residential interior design business, head over to thedesignersblueprint.com and check out all the details of Melanie's Designer's Blueprint course. The past few years have been really weird for interior designers thanks to COVID and a broken supply chain. As I record this, we're all trying to figure out what's going to happen with President Trump's global tariff war, and it feels like the interior design supply chain is about to take another beating. It may be the perfect time for some interior designers to focus more on design and less on project management and sourcing home furnishings. But then again, by the time this podcast episode goes live, the whole tariff kerfluffle could be over and we're all hugging it out. And before you go, if you can find it in your heart to like, share, and subscribe, it would really help other designers find our little podcast.